Good morning. So what is this series exactly? Well, after my dozen or so times of playing through the Pirate101 story, I realized I haven't really ever read the dialogue. Sure, I know major plot points, but I was never enriched by all the dialogue and story this game has to offer. So that is what we're doing today, and for the next few months. I started a new privateer with the explicit purpose to read all the dialogue of the main story and truly learn why it is what we do. Sit back, relax, as we head into the story of Pirate101, experiencing the nuances you may have overlooked, and endure potential side rants about the relevance to today's world. If you like this format, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking to show me you're enthralled by the Pirate101 story like I've been. Without further ado, let's sit by the fire and get started. Good morning, and welcome back to some Pirate101. Except, we're not in Pirate101. Well, let me disclose first. I was originally going to create this sort of series book by book with gameplay and commentary to kind of talk about what's going on. But then I saw Chupo, famous bizarre lore sort of channel. They actually made videos on Wizard 101 here, and I was a good decent way through the game for this privateer character, and I had a bunch of gameplay, and then I saw this Reddit post. So they intended to make a Pirate101 video in a similar style as their Wizard 101 video, and I figured, well, they're probably going to do it better than me, so I'll switch up what I'm doing and make it sort of my own. So now we've got this sort of laid back commentary style, going through each book, talking about what exactly is happening in the plot, because yes, the title is correct. I did read through all the dialogue in the main story. So, how is this going to go? I think we can switch to Pirate101. So, we start in book 1, in the brig of an armada ship, where we awake to Boochbeard and Gandry asking if we're the pirate that they're looking for. We go through the tutorial and choose a couple things like how our parents passed away, where we grew up, and what class we're going to be. And that sort of correlates to what crime we committed to get us locked up in the prison in the first place. And so we go through the tutorial, we go to the top deck, we free our starter companion, who is also a prisoner on the ship. We fight Deacon and some of the Armada troops, and then we escape the ship with Boochbeard and Gandry, and then end up here in Captain Avery's office. And we talk to Captain Avery, who tells us that he will free us and give us a ship if we can do one small task for him. And what is that task? Well, he wants us to get back the Jade Amulet from Finn Dorsal, who is a cutthroat pirate who stole the Jade Amulet in an act to betray Captain Avery, is the sort of vibe that we're getting. He intended to sell it, so he stole it and is awaiting a buyer. And in doing so, he woke up and enraged the native population here in Skull Island, which we'll see in a second is the Troggies. And this kind of started a small war between the Troggies and then Captain Avery's sort of troops. And the first one we meet is Bonnie Ann, and we also meet Lieutenant Smollett here. And they tell us if we can scout out and destroy some of these cannons that the Troggies are firing, they'll be able to help us get to some of Captain Avery's other troops. Well, interestingly, after we in part destroy some of this native population, Bonnie Ann is like, wow, you did a fantastic job and I want to join you. Which, I mean, looking at the correlation, the parallels between Bonnie Ann from Marleybone and the British, there's no real discrepancy between those two things. So once we kind of get through this little part, we end up on the other side over here, and we see that there's a small little frog in a cage right there. That's Lxnely. And so we break him out, and then we head over here to fight our first cutthroat pirates. And then we meet up with Lxnely right here, who tells us that inside the Skull Cave, Finn is awaiting a buyer. And then we head into the cave. And to begin with, this tunnel is all flooded up. So we head over to that sigil there, and we sort of defeat some of the leaders of the native population and then drain the tunnels so that we can go ahead to a door that holds Finn where he's awaiting his buyer. How did Finn get into that room? It's not really that clear, but we kind of just ignore it. And then we meet up with Sergeant Shepard, the other of Captain Avery's troops to sort of team up and take down Finn. Now, Finn's kind of scary. He's a big dude, but with the help of Sergeant Shepard, we take him down and return the Jade Amulet back to Captain Avery. Captain Avery, in surprise, learns that we did not swap out the Jade Amulet for a fake, and holds up his end of the bargain by giving us a ship. So he tells us to go talk to Dockmaster Dan in this little plaza area, and we see a giant ship looming over waiting for us until we talk to Dockmaster Dan. Now, Dockmaster Dan here tells us that the big ship we see in this dock is actually not ours, but the small raft behind it is. Obviously, we're a little upset, so we go back to Captain Avery and kind of give him a piece of our mind, and he lets us in on a little secret. Let's hear the story of Captain Gunn.
Captain Gunn was a legend of the Skyways, feared by pirates and princes from Marleybone to Monquista. A finer smuggler never slipped past a blockade. Gunn sailed to Mushu, mysterious realm of the samurai and the ninja pigs. And there, he made a tremendous discovery. On the cliffs of Mushu, there grows a rare and tasty delicacy, yum-yum fruit, the most precious commodity in the spiral. That's right, yum-yum fruit. It can cure disease, grant strength, and even restore youth. And it makes your breath minty fresh, which is nice. Unfortunately, the Emperor of Mushu holds yum-yum trees sacred. Stealing yum-yum fruit is punishable by death. If you get caught. Gunn smuggled back loads of the stuff, and he sold it by the ton. Yum bread, yum cake, yum pudding. But his real stroke of genius was when he bottled it, and he called his creation Yum. Pirates went crazy for yum, and everybody else did too. Gunn was rich. He even trademarked the song. Whenever a pirate sings yo-ho-ho in a bottle of yum, crafty old Gunn makes a penny. When he retired, Captain Gunn was the richest pirate in history. And then he died. So, where's Gunn's gold?
An interesting little part about that is where the ninja pigs kill him in that puppet show is where we actually find him on Bounty Island once we get to there. So basically, Captain Gunn is the sort of first, I don't want to say first capitalist, but he's the first major capitalist that we are aware of in Pirate 101, because he stole a ton of yum-yum fruit from Mushu and then monopolized the market and created a bunch of products and sold them to the pirates in Skull Island. So Captain Avery tells us that he actually has a contact in a local tavern right over here, the Kraken Skulls Tavern, that is meeting with a bunch of pirates right now, using Gunn's will to find this treasure and make a bunch of bank. So once we head into the tavern, we go to this little basement area, and we start to hear an argument happening around this table. We have our contact, who for the privateer is Ensign Emmett. He's saying that Ratbeard is to be just a captain of the ship because Emmett has the will. Ratbeard doesn't take kindly to this, so he starts an ambush essentially, and we're left to defend Ensign Emmett. And then Ratbeard runs away while we're off to fight the rats. And after we protect Ensign Emmett, he joins our crew, and then we're off to chase Ratbeard. So we escape this tavern. We talk to a few people on the way out, like Prospector Zeke and this little frog dude outside the entrance. Right here, Jack Scallywag. And then we talk to Blind Mew, and we end up finding them at Blood Shoals. When we arrive on Blood Shoals, we see right here, we see these footprints leading to this cave. And this is a sort of known hideout of Ratbeard and his crew, aptly named Trader's Cave. And we follow more footprints, and we come up. We see some light. Oh, we see a table, but we also see 4 dead rats. It's a homicide. It's a quadruple poisoning homicide. We first speak to Lasco here. He's sort of the older brother to these 3 other rats, and he tells us that he may have a lead on Ratbeard, but in order to give us the information, he needs to be laid to rest. But the way he wants to be laid to rest is by laying his 3 crewmates to rest. And so, I'm going to be looking at my notes for this. So our first rat was Jack. He was a spy for Captain Avery, as in he was spying on Captain Avery for the Shark clans, because the Shark clans weren't really happy with the way Captain Avery was standardizing a sort of economy in Skull Island. And we learned that there's some sort of old ancient magic behind this sort of coup. And we end up learning that it's the shrimp, these little prawn shrimp guys that are putting on a facade of big sharks to manipulate and lead the shark clans. And essentially what we do is we stop the coup, we take down the ancient evil, and then we move on to Mo. Mo's story is a little interesting. He was engaged to another individual, and this other guy, Captain Gordon, swept his fiance off her feet and essentially took her. And this really hurt Mo, so he stole the wedding ring, and then he passed away. And now what we're doing is getting the ring back, getting Captain Gordon back because he was kidnapped by the Red Claw gang, and reuniting the two. We end up finding the Red Claw gang, and they make a deal with us, saying that they'll give us Captain Gordon if we bring back a treasure from the Floating Dutchman. Now, the Floating Dutchman is off in some other cave on Skull Island in the Skyway. We raid the Mary Celestia. It's this ghost ship. We fight the Floating Dutchman. We take the loot, and we return to the Red Claw gang. They give us Captain Gordon, and then we return Captain Gordon to Mo's fiance. Our final rat is, interestingly, the only free-to-play rat, and that's Mo, who, behind this little door right there, he locked and trapped his old captain, Zadok, because Zadok believed that there was a city of gold above them in this cave, and Mo wasn't having any of that. We enter the cave, we find Zadok still alive, still trapped. Oh. Alright, that was weird. Let's go into the cave. So we enter the cave, we find Zadok still alive and trapped, and he tells us that this elevator basket will get us to the City of Gold. Now, when we go up there, we're pretty surprised to see there's a Aztecan civilization here who fled from the mainland Azteca we see in Wizard 101 because of Morganth. Now in Wizard 101, Morganth races a comet down on Azteca and is sort of the Ragnarok event of the Aztecan people. So whether or not they fled here before in anticipation or after in reaction to Morganth and Wizard 101, we actually don't know. It's a little interesting. But anyways, we come here, we talk to the Aztecans, and they say that there's some ancient evil lurking here that's stopping them from living freely. So we fight this evil named Cho'okakab. We free them from this curse, return to Zadok, and let him know that there is a city of gold up there, and return to Mo. With all three rats laid to rest, we are left with Lasco, who tells us that the Frog Father in Jonahtown may have the whereabouts of Ratbeard. So we land in Jonahtown and we speak to Captain Ahab, who tells us that he's got a few little tasks for us to do before we get to talk to the Frog Father. First up, one of his fishermen was missing in a nearby vortex that he wants us to go save him from. We save him, bring him back, it's all easy and done. And then he tells us his son is missing. Now his son went to go sell fish to nearby water moles on their own little island. And once we arrive there, we're told that Ahab's son was kidnapped by Ratbeard and the enemy of the water moles, the Waponis. We defeat some Waponi ships and return to the water moles, and we get a little hint as to where he might be. He's back on Skull Island. He was stolen by this mishmash group of people on Ratbeard's crew. We go there, we fight them, we take him back, and then we bring him back to Captain Ahab. Now, during this whole thing, we actually don't see Ratbeard. He's kind of a man behind the curtain at this point. He's just directing these other people. Why he wanted to kidnap Captain Ahab's son, it's not really clear. We're not really told. But he was behind it. And so, in doing so, as a favor, Captain Ahab tells us that the Frog Father is actually in Jonahtown. Once we eventually gain audience with the Frog Father, he tells us that in the Book of Favors, I'm going to quote my script here. I'm not really reading off the script, I'm kind of just using it as a reference, clearly. So, the Frog Father describes from the Book of Favors that in order for him to give us the location of Ratbeard, we must fulfill a favor first for the Frog Father by attacking the Presidio and stealing exotic spice the Monkeystans have control over. So, in order for him to give us the information. We have to do something for him, and that is steal exotic spices that the Monquistans have a monopoly on. So we go to the Presidio, we attack it, we steal the spices, but then we meet a prisoner. Now this prisoner changes depending on who you pick in Pirate 101, and for the privateer, let's take a little look. This is going to be spoilers for where the privateer's at on the day of recording, but that doesn't really matter. So on the privateer, the Presidio companion that we got is Lucky Jack Russell. And so they're a prisoner. They tell us that they actually know who we are and knew our parents. So we break him out. We return to the Frog Father with the spices. The Frog Father says, and I quote, "The Frog Father again refers to the Book of Favors, stating that because he has an outstanding favor with Ratbeard, he cannot give us his location, but can instead transfer the favor he owes to another person who owes him a favor. This is One-Eyed Jack." The Frog Father sends us off to One-Eyed Jack and Flotsam to fulfill this favor. So we arrive on Flotsam and kind of have to take part in a little goose chase. We speak to this barkeep who tells us that Mustang Sally knows the location of One-Eyed Jack. We go to Mustang Sally and she tells us that Ned knows the location of One-Eyed Jack and is actually the first guy we spoke to. So they did a little tricksy-wooksy on us. So we return to One-Eyed Jack and he tells us that he left Ratbeard in a house that was nearby. So we go to that house and we find Ratbeard as he's burning the last pages of the will as he's escaping. So naturally we pick up the pieces left of the will, and it's a little riddle for us. So the way that Captain Gunn is pointing us to his treasure is by taking these steps that go through his life and all these important events. So starting at Captain Gunn's house, we find the next piece of paper that points us to the floating lighthouse where we have to find the gravestone of his first mate, Ned. And as we're looking, we come across this evil skeleton guy named Old Scratch who tells us that because we've trampled on his property, his lands, he's gonna kill us for it. Well, we beat him in combat and he decides to join our team, and this is the Old Scratch that we know and love. This guy. Old Scratch points us to Ned's grave, where we learn that the next piece of the puzzle is on Bounty Island, which we can actually see over there. That is Bounty Island right there. It's a big X marks the spot thanks to Squinty, this crab guy. So on Bounty Island, we hear there's Squinty, and we go through this sort of Pirate 101. Wait, that's the name of the game. I didn't even realize that. We go through this. So what we actually go through is a trial course of what pirates do, like rigging sails, loading a cannon, using a spyglass, and it takes us into the X marks the spot where we find the body of Captain Gunn. And Squinty here gets all mad that we found it before him, and so we do a little brawl. He runs away, and we're left with Captain Gunn. There's no gold, but our new companion, Old Scratch, tells us he can have Captain Gunn speak to us through his body there. So he sort of reanimates Captain Gunn, who tells us that Ratbeard cheated using Waponies to swim through the flooded tunnels to steal the gold. And he tells us some alarming news. He tells us that the Waponies are actually going to sacrifice the gold to their fire god on the Waponi Wu volcano that we can kind of see over somewhere. Oh, I think it was right there. On that big volcano there, they're going to be throwing the gold into the lava. So with Captain Gunn's blessing, we escape to the volcano. So we land at the base of the volcano, we fight through these Waponies, and then we ascend the volcano. And once we reach the peak, we find the leader, who is named Chumbawamba, and all the Waponies throwing their gold into the lava, with Ratbeard sort of hung by his foot ahead, swinging over the lava. So we defeat the leader, we stop the Waponies, and Chumbawamba actually jumps into the lava as a sort of sacrifice play. And then Ratbeard frees himself. He reluctantly joins our crew, apparent that he is no good captain and thinks he can do better under us. We take the rest of the gold and we return to Captain Avery. And Ratbeard tells us that the Waponies betrayed him and just kind of used him. So he feels a little bad and thinks that, you know, maybe he could rectify his actions and become a good man. With knowledge and gold in hand, we return to Captain Avery, who thanks us for our work and tells us that we're off scot-free. And that's the end of book 1. It's kind of a doozy. I hope this format is fun and entertaining. I'm definitely going to work out the kinks as we get to the later books. But yeah, that is all. Thank you.